In this video, I will discuss the learning and impact data for my project. And the one thing I want to focus on to start with is that the assessment for my project was an assessment for learning because it was helping me as a teacher gain insight as to the best form of learning for my students and kind of gauging whether or not a digital space and access to videos would be the best format for them or not. And so, in looking at that, I discovered some strengths and challenges throughout the process. And a lot of these I've kind of talked about before. So, the basis of the project, some of the strengths were these first two, the connection to missed lessons and assignments for those absent students, and then the second one down here, which was for students who even were in class, kind of a supplemental video to take them step by step through a specific topic that was a little bit more challenging for them. So those are two of the big strengths that when I first identified the project back in 583, those are two of my goals, and I think that for some of the students who had accessed the videos, these two things really have worked well and are strengths. And then consequently on the other side, may not have worked well for other students. So I'll talk about that in just a second. So the rest of the strengths, obviously they're easily accessible for most students, or what I had considered easily accessible. I'll kind of talk about that and some data a little bit later in the video. And then 38% of the total number of students, so 38% of 34 students found the videos helpful. And then the last one was, this ended up in both columns. So as a strength, there were fewer disruptions due to sports, which, as I mentioned previously, in years past, the sports schedule, and I hate to pick on them, but it's been music festivals and field trips and sports schedules and all these extracurricular things that are wonderful for our students, but really posed a lot of disruptions to learning in the classroom. So there are fewer disruptions due to sports and these other extracurricular things. So the students are actually in class more often than last year, which is a strength. And then on the flip side, I'll talk about why that is also a challenge. So some of the challenges that I have identified in the project is that the videos are only posted when 25% of the class is absent. So the question to myself and the kind of struggle throughout the project is, well, what happens when only one student is absent? Or, 25% in different class sizes. I mean, I have class sizes of 7, I have class sizes of 10, I have, so they're all different. So that 25% is really a different number depending on which class you're in, which is okay. But, I think in the beginning of my project, I thought about posting when a student is absent, I will post a video. And I think that part is really cumbersome and not doable. So I had to kind of pick a number to decide what, I can't do it every single time a kid is absent. So I have to decide what that number would be. And I had chosen 25% when kind of gauging the total number of students in my class. That seemed like that was doable. But sometimes reaching that 25%, because students are there more often now, sometimes reaching that 25% in order to post a video is actually the challenge. So it goes both ways. So either posting too frequently because I wanted to post videos originally back in 583. My initial thought, oh, I'll post whenever a kid's absent. I'm like, that's way too much. Excuse me, but consequently 25%, which I still thought was a pretty doable number, sometimes we're just not there. And it seems like it goes a long span before I actually have to post a video sometimes. So that becomes a little bit of a different challenge. So, and then to kind of balance out the fewer disruptions on the strength side, the fewer disruptions on the challenge side due to sports and extracurriculars, um, is exactly kind of tied into the 25% of the class as well. These videos that I had assumed were going to be posted very often are less frequently than I had originally anticipated, which is good in a way, but also sometimes challenging, because I wanted them to be there and I wanted to see, especially because the main focus of the project was on reaching the students who aren't there due to absenteeism. Although I am posting the videos for supplemental resources too, that wasn't the main purpose of, the overarching purpose of the project. So I really wanted to see just the absence piece, and it's kind of hard to determine that just based on the number of videos that have had to be created for that reason. As I mentioned before, in the perception data profile and also in the process data profile, the videos weren't posted for Spanish 3, so that was a challenge, and a challenge for both them and me. I think that it's a challenge for them because they didn't get a chance to experience the videos until after I had already collected data. So it's not that they weren't beneficial, it's just that they didn't play a part into their class schedule. Now I could have, I think I had talked about this earlier, but I could have posted a video or an entire lesson digitally for the entire class, but given the number of days that were actually missed for the Spanish 3 classes that were actually missed as a whole, that would have been several lessons. So if I really wanted to collect the data, there is a way that I could have done it, but it also would have been a completely different way than I had done it for other classes. So without skewing the data completely, obviously it is skewed a little bit because Spanish 3 didn't have any videos. But I feel like the type of video that I posted for Spanish 1, 2, and 4 would have been drastically different from the type of video that I posted for Spanish 3. So that's, again, a little bit of a challenge and struggle for myself. And then down here, some of the students who felt the videos were not applicable did not actually access Google Classroom. So the students who chose not applicable on the survey, most of them were Spanish 3 students, but then others were students who just did not access Google Classroom at all and didn't know anything about the video being posted. I'm going to discuss that data in just a little bit. And sometimes finding time within the regular school day, even though I had talked about these videos being less frequent than I had expected, sometimes even on the day, whatever given day, that I actually had to create the video, sometimes just finding that time was a challenge. So that became a little bit interesting too, to kind of manage. But it is doable, but it is sometimes a little bit of a balance, or I'm staying after school, for an extra half hour or so to create the videos and whatnot and get them uploaded in time. And then some implications that I had kind of taken away from the strengths and challenges was the number of students who felt these videos were not applicable. Again, a lot of them were Spanish 3 students that didn't have the videos there, but some were not. And why do these students not access Google Classroom frequently? That's kind of what I want to know. And I do have data for it, so I kind of answered my own question, but that was important for me. And is there different criteria that I could use to determine when the videos are posted? So instead of 25% of the class being absent, is there some other different criteria that would be more beneficial for me to find out from students, when would be a better time, or more frequently or less frequently or whatever, for the videos to actually be posted? So that is something else I wanted to know. Again, I had talked about reaching out and collecting data. My goal was to have all 4 levels, and I I feel badly and I wish I had all of that, but sometimes, with data that doesn't always work out exactly the way that you want it to. But as the year goes on, I am going to continue to measure that, so I'm excited for that. And then these videos, I think, could also be used. We've had an abundance of teachers who have been out of the building and have needed subs, and of a shortage of substitute teachers in the building. So as I look at this, I wonder how I could use it for sub plans to kind of alleviate some of the stress that's going on in the building. And also when I'm out on maternity leave, if I could design the remainder of the curriculum in a digital space. So that's interesting to me. And I talked a little bit more down here about I probably am not going to implement a project that would be solely online before my maternity leave to determine whether or not that's going to be beneficial. But I think just kind of gauging in a perceptual data way, gauging the students' perceptions of the videos throughout the year up until I leave for maternity leave will also help me indicate whether or not I would use a platform like that for maternity leave / sub plans. So, and then I want to jump over here to the SurveyMonkey, and this is all. Let's see if I can. This is all 34 students who had been polled, and the first question is, how often do you access Google Classroom? And the choices were on a voluntary basis, but daily, when when assignment is posted, when I receive an email about the assignment, or never. And you can see that the majority is when the assignment is posted, and some say on a voluntary basis daily, and even the ones that check it when they receive an email about it, they're all within just 2. Actually, there's a difference of 2 between receiving an email and checking it daily, and then there's a difference of 2 between checking it daily and when an assignment is posted. So they're all pretty close, but the next piece of this is, if you don't access Google Classroom frequently, why don't you access it frequently? And this, for me, was pretty eye-opening. Some students said that they didn't, the lack of time, those were 3 students. The majority of students said it's not applicable because I do access Google Classroom frequently, and that number was 12. And interestingly enough, the students who found the videos helpful, that number was 13. So there was 13 students who found the videos helpful, and 12 students who felt that they access Google Classroom frequently. So I thought those numbers really kind of jive together, and they kind of speak to each other for me. And then another popular response was lack of motivation. There were 8 students who said they're not really motivated, which was kind of interesting to me. And then you could see the breakdown of the other ones. Everyone said that no one clicked that they were unsure how to access it. And then looking at some of the other responses, some people said, I don't have it for many other classes, so they don't use it often. Some people say that they forgot it, and a lot of it was forgetting. I forget to check it. Or that other classes don't post assignments in Google Classroom, so this is one of the few classes that do, which I find interesting because one of the platforms that we're suggested to use as teachers is to use Google Classroom to communicate with students. So I find that interesting that students are saying that other teachers don't use it. But anyway, so I wanted to just take a look at that data, because I think that really is interesting to see why students are not accessing Google Classroom, and therefore maybe not the video.